Much love, Untamed ones. Guess what time it is? Whoop, whoop. Are we ready? I'm ready. Part 1, Caged. Sparks. 4 years ago, married to the father of my 3 children, I fell in love with a woman. Much later, I watched that woman drive away from my home to meet with my parents and share her plan to propose to me. She thought I didn't know what was happening that Sunday morning, but I knew. When I heard her car return, I settled into the couch, opened a book, and tried to slow my pulse. She walked through the door and directly toward me, bent down, kissed my forehead. She pushed my hair aside and took a deep breath in my neck, like she always does. Then she stood up and disappeared into the bedroom. I walked to the kitchen to pour some coffee for her, and when I turned around, she was right there in front of me, down on one knee, holding a ring. Her eyes were certain and pleading, wide and laser focused, sky blue bottomless. I couldn't wait, she said. I just could not wait another minute. I love love. Later in bed, I laid my head on her chest, and while we talked about her morning, she told my parents, I love your daughter and grandchildren like I've never loved before. I spent my entire life searching and preparing myself for them. I promise you that I will love and protect them forever. My mother's lip quivered with fear and courage as she said, Abby, I have not seen my daughter this alive since she was 10 years old. Much else was said that morning, but that first response from my mother jumped out at me like a sentence in a novel begging to be underlined. I have not seen my daughter this alive since she was 10 years old. My mother watched the spark in my eyes fade during my 10th year on earth. Now, 30 years later, she was witnessing the return of the spark. In the past few months, my entire posture had changed. I looked regal to her and a little scary. After that day, I began to ask myself, where did my spark go at 10? How had I lost myself? I've done my research and learned this. 10 is when we learn how to be good girls and real boys. 10 is when children begin to hide who they are in order to become what the world expects them to be. Right around 10 is when we begin to internalize our formal taming. 10 is when the world sat me down, told me to be quiet, and pointed towards my cages. These are the feelings you are allowed to express. This is how a woman should act. This is the body you must strive for. These are the things you will believe. These are the people you can love. Those are the people you should fear. This is the kind of life you are supposed to want. Make yourself fit. You'll be uncomfortable at first, but don't worry. Eventually, you'll forget you're caged. Soon, this will feel like life. I wanted to be a good girl, so I tried to control myself. I chose a personality, a body, a faith, and a sexuality so tiny, I had to hold my breath to fit inside. Then I promptly became very sick. When I became a good girl, I also became a bulimic. None of us can hold our breath all the time. Bulimia was where I exhaled. It was where I refused to comply, indulged my hunger, and expressed my fury. I became animalistic during my daily binges. Then I draped myself over the toilet and purged because a good girl must stay very small to fit inside her cages. She must leave no outward evidence of her hunger, Good girls aren't hungry, furious, or wild. All of the things that make a woman human are a good girl's dirty secret. Back then, I suspected that my bulimia meant that I was crazy. In high school, I did a stint in a mental hospital, and my suspicion was confirmed. I understand myself differently now. I was just a caged girl made for wide open skies. I wasn't crazy. I was a goddamn cheetah. When I saw Abby, I remembered my wow. I wanted her, and it was the first time I wanted something beyond what I had been trained to want. I loved her, and it was the first time I loved someone beyond those I had been expected to love. Creating a life with her was the first original idea I'd ever had, and the first decision I made as a free woman. After 30 years of contorting myself to fit inside someone else's idea of love, I finally had a love that fit, custom made for me, by me. I finally asked myself what I wanted instead of what the world wanted from me. I felt alive. I tasted freedom, and I wanted more. I looked hard at my faith, my friendships, my work, my sexuality, my entire life, and asked, how much of this was my idea? Do I truly want any of this? Or is this what I was conditioned to want? Which of my beliefs are my own creation, and which were programmed into me? How much of who I've become is inherent, and how much was just inherited? How much of the way I look and speak and behave is just how other people have trained me to look and speak and behave? How many of the things I've spent my life chasing are just dirty pink bunnies? Who was I before I came who the world told me to be? Over time, I walked away from my cages. I slowly built a new marriage, a new faith, a new worldview, a new purpose, a new family, and a new identity by design instead of default. From my imagination instead of my indoctrination. From my wild instead of from my training. What follows are stories about how I got caged and how I got free. Come on and breathe with me. Yes, amazing. Yes, let's breathe. Yeah. I ask each of us these questions. I ask us to take a hard look at ourselves, goddesses. How much of this was my idea? My work, my friendships, my faith, my sexuality, my entire journey that I am calling life. How much of this that's happening is my decision? That's what I'm asking me and anyone else who needs to be asked this question. Do I truly want any of this, or is this what I was conditioned to want? Which of my beliefs are of my own creation, and which of my beliefs were programmed into me? How much of who have I become is inherent? It's me. I was born with it. I was birthed from the God. Like, this is me. Or how much did I inherit? How much of the way that I look, I speak, I behave, is it the way that I was trained? Or is it how I really look, speak, and behave? I ask each of us to ask ourselves, have we been caged in areas that we feel trapped and blocked in? We're still coming through this Cancer moon of healing our emotions and connecting to our loyal self, because as an ebony warrior, we are loyal to our royal selves. It's so important to be loyal to us, and during this Cancer moon and in this Cancer season, we can connect to the loyalty of who we are. We can bring the balance to our emotions. They say that Cancers are moody. The thing is, they're connected to the moon. They're the twin of the moon, so they are connected to the waves, our emotions. So they're here to help balance. And when we don't know, then it does show up in a mood. But moods are purpose. It's for us to listen to and feel. I'm just asking us to take a moment to feel who we are. And if we are being who we were told to be, or if we are being who we know to be. Because who we know to be is the best for us. We are worthy of pleasure. We are worthy of peace. And as we come through the pain, on the other side of that pain is pleasure. But we got to come through that pain. We have to allow it to just transmute to pleasure. That we remember that we're worthy of pleasure, that pleasure is necessary, that we can be untamed. We can, because we're infinite abundance. We're limitless. We're ageless. We're timeless. We're majestic. We're worthy of pleasure. Much love, magnetic peace.